He was taking advantage of you.
Or it was just a way for me to keep being what I've always been. A killer.
Do you swear to protect the travelers of the night and bring my vengeance to those who would do them harm?
Yeah.
Then rise and live again as my fist of vengeance, as my Moon Knight.
Hello everyone, I'm back. I didn't do any videos on episodes number 3 and 4 of Moon Knight because my exams were going on at this point. However, I must say the episode quality has only gone up and up ever since episode 1. When I did the episode 2 video and then I knew that I would not be able to do episode 3, and then I saw episode 3, I was so upset because I was like, oh man, this is one of the good ones, I don't want to miss this. But then I saw episode 4 and that was even better than episode 3. That made me even more sad. But then I thought, okay, what if they continue on this trend and episode 5 is even better than episode 4? And well, Disney Plus delivered certainly. So even though I missed out on 2 very good episodes, now I have a very, very good episode to talk about. And before I begin, I just want to say this episode was a very hard one to talk about for me, because I don't remember when I have seen something from Disney be so dark. Like the episode 3 and episode 4 were already pushing the boundaries of what is and isn't PG-13, with episode 4 having the off-screen disembowelment essentially of a man with just the sounds, which was like really horrifying. And episode 3 having like essentially an entire massacre happening, multiple massacres happening off screen. Same goes for episode 1 and 2, but more so for 3 and 4. But in this one, this was like straight up a deep dive into Mark Spector's personality, into Mark Spector's past, and into who Mark Spector is as a person. And in this episode, it finally does tell us who is the original personality and who is the quote unquote made up personality. And this episode is very poetic in a way, because so this episode reveals that Stephen Grant was the personality that Mark Spector made up in order to deal with his trauma of having a mother who bet him regularly, who would not come up to his birthdays, and having lost his brother at a very, very young age, and being made feel guilty about that, and feeling guilty about that his entire life, carrying that his entire life. And when that reveal comes, Stephen Grant is broken, and we are broken with him, because we began this series with Stephen Grant. Now sure, for someone like me who follows the comic books a little bit, I do understand that yes, Mark Spector was always going to be the original personality, but it's still a little heartbreaking. And even after that, Steven does not lose his composure, and by the end of the episode, when it is finally revealed that Stephen Grant and Mark Spector's mother is actually dead, it is almost like Stephen Grant is counseling Mark to finally be able to deal with his trauma.
All the things I'd done. Mark, all those horrible things that she said to you, she was wrong. It wasn't your fault. I shouldn't have brought him in that cave. I shouldn't have brought him in the cave. Hey. You were just a child. It wasn't your fault.
Trauma. The entire episode is essentially just Stephen Grant learning more and more about Mark. Do you mind? yeah, that was my fan. I don't know how I'm going to be able to remove this noise. I can't switch it off because it's super hot here, but whatever. So this entire episode, if you look at it, is essentially a form of therapy session, kind of like episode 8 for WandaVision, where Agatha was taking Wanda through the entire stages of her life and seeing sort of how they got there. And this is similar in a sense where Stephen is taking, sort of forcing Mark to go through the entirety of his past so that they can balance their scales and so that the duat doesn't claim them. But here, instead of being malicious like it was in that episode, here it is helpful. Like they want to help each other. Like by the end, they end up almost being like mirror images of each other, like Stephen Grant by the end realizes that, well, if Mark Spector has certain abilities, then so does Stephen Grant, and that is what he uses to save Mark Spector from being taken over by the unbalanced souls of the Duat. Whereas Mark Spector by the end realizes that even though he created Steven as a sort of coping mechanism, Steven has almost become like this friend to him and he doesn't want to lose him. And that is obviously finally what sets the scales in balance.
Stop the boat! Stop the boat!
The scales are balanced.
I do want to talk about the supernatural aspects of this entire episode. Like Towerette was very well done for a magical hippo lady. I was almost believing that this is a real person. Not almost. I actually believed this was a real person. The same way that I believe Thanos was a real person. Like I could not tell this was a CGI character. The entire scene about where they are going through the sea of sand and they're traveling towards the field of reeds, and towards the end they show us the field of reeds. This, and I feel the show has done the entire mythology aspects of this very well, and that really gives me hope for the upcoming Percy Jackson series, which I will touch upon in another video. All of that being said, I do want to point out two very interesting details, one in this episode and one in the upcoming episode. That is, before we get the scene which explains that Mark's brother drowned essentially in a cave where Mark had led him into, and Mark feels responsible for it, we see that Stephen Grant steps on a skeleton which looks eerily like Khonshu. And this sort of gives me pause for thought, because now I understand that this is pulling heavily from the comic run. What was the name of the comic? I will search that.
A few moments later.
Yeah, so I understand that this episode four's ending and this entire episode is pulling heavily from Jeff Lemire comic run of Moon Knight, where Moon Knight is trapped in this sort of otherworldly place in the overvoid, where he is led to believe that his entire life as Moonlight was a lie, and he is treated by a doctor called Dr. Emmett, who turns out to be Amit, and orderlies who are actually jackals in disguise. In that run, it is revealed that Khonshu did not cause Mark's DID. Mark already had DID, and Khonshu had sort of set him up ever since childhood to be his Moon Knight, to be his avatar. And I wonder whether this skeleton being found is just an Easter egg or a reference to that, or whether this is actually saying that this thing is also following from that that comic run. And secondly, one in episode 4, this is not really that relevant, but I noticed this, so I wanted to mention. If you slow down the ending clip of the two of them screaming, you will notice that Mark Spector starts screaming a little bit before Stephen Grant. And well, that just goes to show that Mark Spector has better reflexes than Stephen Grant. Just an interesting detail I wanted to point out. But and I love those details. But all that being said, this episode is like, I was feeling throughout that, like, okay, being a Marvel fan, knowing that this is a Marvel show, I know that the boat version of the things is the real thing, and the psych ward is really a made up thing. But without that context, it was really like, so when he was screaming, all of a sudden he's in a psych ward again, and I'm like, oh wait, was that hippo lady made up? Is the psych ward a real thing? And is this somewhere in the future where Arthur Harrow has made world, but then how would that, whatever. And then we come back to it. So like, okay, was that the made up thing? And then we keep switching back and forth between two. And Arthur Harrow actually puts this very well.
Your mind is violently vacillating between sense and nonsense.
That being said, there are three interpretations that I can make of this. One is that none of this is real, this show hasn't been real, and Mark is really in a mental asylum where Dr. Harrow is treating him, and all of this entire thing is just him making stuff up so that he can deal with it. And the other one is that the other way around, that he's actually dead, he's in the duat, and the duat, whenever he is, so if you notice, he always goes into this psychiatric ward with with Dr. Harrow whenever he is distressed, whenever he is unable to deal with something, whenever he has to open up about something and he's not doing it. So it was almost like the duat is giving him signs to sort of open up, and for whatever reason he's seeing this in this way. And the third interpretation I have is that both of these are real, just over different time periods. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that this boat thing actually happened, and towards the end Moon Knight lost, and Arthur Harrow took him prisoner and kept him in a mental asylum where he is made to believe that he is crazy, and they are sort of reliving this entire thing, and Arthur Harrow is manipulating him into believing that all of that was a fantasy. And so the parts of the episode where um, the boat is there, that's actually a flashback, and that's not actually happening in real time. what is what is what is happening in real time is that Mark is speaking to Arthur Harrow, and Arthur Harrow is trying to manipulate him into thinking, oh, this is, your entire life is fake. Well, and that would certainly be something. um, I'm really interested to see which route they go into with this. And I was avoiding talking about this, but man, we lost Steven. Like, it really, like, yeah, I know somehow they can still bring him back, but we really lost Steven. He is taken by the souls of the duat whilst trying to save Mark Spector, and he he's taken in by the sand sea, and he becomes one of the unbalanced souls.
Wait! Wait! Steven! Run! Wait! Run! Keep coming! Keep the stop the boat! Stop the boat! Wait! Wait! Steven! No! Steven!
It was like, if just a little bit more time had passed, the scales would have balanced, because it was the very act of Stephen's sacrifice that made Mark connect to Stephen more, and that made the scales balance. And he's in the field of reeds, and I'm like, oh, that is so heartbreaking, man. I don't know. Okay. And another thing which stuck out to me is that we all were expecting a third personality to show up at some point, and from the beginning, the expectation is obviously that the reason their hearts are incomplete is because they both are kind of just the first two personalities, and they sort of have to find a third personality to then keep it over there and balance the scales. And well, the scales balance without the third personality. So if they, and now there's just one episode remaining, and so if they do introduce the third personality, I wonder how they're going to deal with it. This is one of the criticisms that I have with this episode and with most of the MCU shows in general, that they feel too short. Like, we are already at the penultimate episode, and it feels like there's so much to tie up. While I loved this episode, don't get me wrong, I loved this episode, I can't help but I can't shake the feeling that how are they going to wrap so much up in just one episode. And it's not just this series. This is a problem that has plagued almost all of the MCU shows, and some of them might have dealt with it better than the other ones, but I don't think anyone has like stuck the landing entirely, for me at least. But regardless, I can't say anything about the entire series until the whole thing is finished, obviously, so I'll keep my opinions to myself for now. And yeah, so let's see what turns up in episode 6. I can't wait to watch it. And so now, if you've reached so far into the video, why do I have this box over here? I would like to introduce you to my novel, Dreams of Perfection. Is I have written with a pen name G.C.Nightwalker. Links to buy this will be in the description. And if you like this video, if you like what you saw, leave a like, press subscribe, share this video with your friend, all that wonderful with your friends. Share this video with your friends, all that wonderful stuff. And yeah, I will see you on the next Wednesday, and let's see what turns up. Okay then.
Hippopotamus, hippopotamus, hippopotamus. Ah.